Federal Workforce Fallout is sponsored by Prince George's Community College.
You're watching Federal Workforce Fallout, where each week we break down the impacts to our neighbors and the federal workforce. I'm Larry Miller. Well, results from a survey of former federal probationary workers gives us a look at how this group is doing after being abruptly let go by the Trump administration last year. I spoke with Executive Director and co-founder of 27 United, Anna Culbertson. Anna Culbertson, thanks so much for being here. We really appreciate your time today. So Anna, talk to me a little bit about your organization, 27 United. I mean, you guys are doing work and really trying to advocate for federal workers and sort of tell the story of how these workers have been impacted.
Yeah, so 27 United is an organization, with a couple other people who were RIFT and probationary employees from the National Institutes of Health, we started because we all just kind of started talking right after the rifts at the NIH. And so we started with a lot of different community supports and like helping one another within the NIH. And then we started to really think about how important biomedical and health research is as well. So we've been doing a lot of NIH focused advocacy, but also with this probationary survey and some of the work that we do, it's kind of really trying to uplift and support federal worker-led projects. And so this probationary survey was just done by a bunch of people within the federal workforce community, and 27 United as an organization said, okay, yeah, like we'll host the results and help amplify the results and the survey itself.
Yeah, and so a little bit about this survey. This is a survey that was conducted earlier this year, between February and March, of probationary federal workers, correct? And from that survey, there was a lot of information that was gleaned about sort of the impact that we've seen on probationary workers that were let go from federal work service in 2025. And for many now, what we found is really some shocking data about the fact that there are still plenty who are still without work to this day.
Yeah, I think it was around 25% that are still looking for work. And also like 68%, right under 70% took a pay cut. So I think even the people who have been able to find work still have not found work that's as substantial, at least fiscally, as the jobs that they'd had in the federal government.
Yeah, and so walk me through sort of the summary here. Let's walk through the things that you've learned. Quite a bit about not just the impact, but sort of looking at what the landscape looks like for them now. And in terms of the impacts on the American public, one of the things that we found was that there was a larger workload for the remaining employees that are still in the employ of the federal government, that getting rid of these probationary employees, according to this survey, continues to have an impact on those that are currently within federal service now, because they're having to pick up this additional slack.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, we hear that too when you talk to current workers. Like a lot of us still have friends, colleagues, people that we know who are still working in the federal government, and their workloads are so intense. I mean, we took and collected a lot of quotes from people who filled out the survey. We asked them to explain maybe in 2 to 3 sentences what the impact on the American public would be or is, because they lost their positions. And a number of them stated, you know, I was the only person who did my job and I am no longer able to do it, whether that's working at like a particular fishery or doing something specific like a wildfire response or whatever. And so I think that, you know, well, who is filling in those gaps? Who is doing that position? It's people who are currently working.
That's interesting. I mean, you know, having, and full disclosure, I've worked at NIH before as a contractor.
Oh, really?
Worked at Building 10, so I know the campus very well. And when you're surrounded by those people, you recognize too sort of the demands on their plate to, you know, provide services, to do the job of the American people. If you're working at NIH, likely to conduct some sort of research in some capacity or to support research as well. One of the things that was also talked about too and noted in the survey was sort of the loss of institutional knowledge, which we know from any organization is important when you think about being able to carry out the functions of that organization.
Yeah, so like I said, there were a number of people who said that they were the only people doing the particular job that they were doing in their agency, and these quotes that we collected. As well, you're losing a lot of people who, I forget the exact percentage, I think it was 45% who had been contractors prior to becoming federal employees. just so they had already been maybe working in their position or a different contract position. I actually was a contractor at NIH for 3 years. And then I became a Fed in a different position, but I was only able to work for 2 months as a Fed because I also, as a probationary employee, was placed on leave and then fired on May 8th. And then, so of the people who responded and said that they were contractors before, 55% of them had been contractors for more than 4 years. So they have significant institutional knowledge. And so that's, really, really impactful.
Oh, we talked a little bit about the career level impacts as well. The survey finding that 21% of respondents remain unemployed as of January 31st of 2026. Were you surprised by the number of people that were still out of work almost a year later?
Surprised in that I think it's really horrible. But anecdotally, I know so many people who are like, I struggled to find work, or if they found work, they're working part-time, or like even the data shows, I found work, I'm making less than I was in my government position. And throughout the survey, we found too that only 11% of respondents stayed in the federal workforce. And so of the people who responded to that question, the remainder were either working in state government or in industry, maybe academia, but we're doing something different than working for the federal government.
Well, I can imagine so, given the sort of circumstances that they found themselves in, that a lot of people would be hesitant, as many have described, about going back into a workforce that seems to be dealing with a lot of uncertainty and instability, that would certainly be yet another gamble that they would be taking. Yeah. What was also interesting about the survey as well is that you looked at the mental health of this workforce, right? It noted that 6 months after their firing, respondents reported adverse effects on their mental health. More than 90% reported negative symptoms that affected their daily lives and personal well-being, including depression, apathy. It's interesting that when we think about the professional impacts of this, there is also a health implication to this as well. Has that sort of been something that you and your organization have been looking at, and sort of ways in which to support people in terms of their mental well-being? It seems like if you're still looking for a job a year later after losing your job, that the depression, the anxiety only continue to go on an upward decline as you continue to go without work.
Yeah, so my organization, we actually do weekly peer empowerment calls. And so they're interagency because that really started when we saw the EPA people who were placed on administrative leave for signing a letter of dissent at EPA, and then thinking about FEMA people were also placed on leave for signing the Katrina Declaration. And so we said, okay, well, our peer empowerment call, why don't we open up to a broader group of people? And then during the government shutdown, we said, okay, anybody can come, whether you're a current worker, former worker, just join our weekly virtual peer empowerment call. So that's one of the ways. We've also partnered with other organizations like WellFed and National Public Health Coalition to offer various resources as well. But it's really hard. We've seen it. Even in people that I just talked to throughout the work, people who are doing the advocacy, people who are still working are also really impacted too. But yeah, the probationary employees specifically, it's been a year of not being able to find work. And a lot of these people may have been early career or new to their particular job. So it just feels really hard.
Let's talk a little bit about the conclusions and next steps. Clearly there were some conclusions about sort of the impact that this has had, and it certainly was not glowing. When you look at sort of the things that were recommended, the things that were deduced from that data, what stands out to you?
I think the importance, and as we're witnessing kind of large scale decreases in protections to federal employees just generally. We're seeing people who are filing whistleblower complaints being placed on leave and being fired. I think a lot of the takeaways is, well, how can we protect this new workforce? How can we protect, especially for these employees, right? What are the things that we can do to keep them safe and interested and wanting to work for the federal government and being able to be reinstated, kind of have some compensation for the fact that they've been through so much trauma over the last year.
And it looks like a fight that you guys will continue on. Have you gotten any congressional support? Anyone on Capitol Hill that has been open to your cause and is interested in providing the level of support necessary to see some of the things that you want to see changed?
We don't have a specific congressional champion in this moment in time, but we are, sending the survey to our Hill contacts as an organization, and then like that. I mean, we're organizationally just supporting the results, and so we, the people who really worked on the survey, we said, are you able to just send this to your own personal Hill contacts, right? And so just trying to get the word out there, and we're going to kind of have to continue on with that outreach and see how far we can go.
And what do you think that the next few months looks like for you? I mean, the idea of layoffs being off the table at this point isn't a sure bet. I mean, there's a potential that we could see more federal workforce layoffs. Certainly the rumor mill has been circulating, and we've seen at least some suggestion that there could potentially be some additional layoffs, at least based on the way that things have been moving through the courts and the things that the Trump administration has said that they would like to do in terms of reductions. Kind of give me a little bit of a picture in terms of what the next few months looks like for you guys.
So we kind of have an organization that has really two important parts to it. So advocacy for this health research stuff, and then also these community supports. And I think what we've developed over the last year has been a soft landing spot. And as an organization, we're really focused on the NIH workforce and like the health research workforce writ large, but we also partner like that with other organizations that are doing broader interagency supports. And so as you see increases in potential layoffs and things like that, I think we'll continue to partner with organizations that are offering similar supports and kind of and we've been talking about this a lot actually, is like just being prepared for when the next wave comes out. How does this integrate with our advocacy efforts? How does this integrate into the services that we're already offering? We've done this in the past too, when we thought that there was going to be increase in layoffs. We'd said, okay, well, are we going to do 2 peer empowerment calls this week, or what? Like thinking about different ways that we can support people. During the RIFs, we did 4 community-led events, 3 or 4 community-led events the week of the 1-year anniversary of the RIFs. And so just trying to think through different ways that we can be prepared.
All right, and prepared you certainly will be. Anna Culbertson, Executive Director of 27 United. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here.
Despite record tourism and millions of World Cup visitors, job growth slowed in June. Employers added 57,000 jobs last month, a significant slowdown from May's 129,000. But the unemployment rate ticked down to 4.2 in June from 4.3. Job gains were led by business services, social assistance, and healthcare. But in a surprise for the season, leisure and hospitality lost the most jobs in June, down 61,000. Economists say summer hiring may be undercounted as smaller bars, restaurants, and stores finish reporting employment data during the World Cup and America 250 celebrations. Meantime, job seekers say applicant tracking systems, better known as ATS, are adding another layer of complication to their job search. And it turns out recently published data backs up that claim. A landmark study from researchers at Stanford University found what it describes as algorithmic monoculture, where a candidate's AI evaluation data allows a single rejection to follow applications across multiple organizations. Emily Miranda tells us about some of the other issues job seekers are finding with AI.
Looking for a job today can feel like trying to stand out in a packed crowd.
You can apply for hundreds of positions and hear back from maybe 2 or 3.
Texas added more than 46,000 jobs in March based on the most recent data from the Texas Workforce Commission. The state's unemployment rate held steady at 4.3% last month. And for many Central Texans hoping to land that first job or a better opportunity, artificial intelligence is becoming a go-to tool in the job hunt.
AI is an important part of everyday life, so I don't blame people to use AI to write resume, quickly with minimal effort.
With a few simple details about my work experience, education, and skills, AI can create a polished resume in seconds. But Dr. Amir Sadeh, an assistant professor at St. Edward's University, says there is a catch.
AI can create resume that sound polished, but leave it empty in substance.
And in today's job market, more companies are also using AI-powered applicant tracking systems, or ATS, to keep up with hundreds of resumes. These systems can sort through resumes in minutes by looking for keywords, job history, and qualifications before a hiring manager ever sees them.
Employers keep using AI systems to make their job easier, at the same time to identify authentic, genuine applications.
I asked Dr. Sadeh if this could weed out qualified candidates.
Sometimes these AI tools provide them with fancy structures and format. The problem is many of these HR tracking systems, they use AI systems to filter and organize resume, and many of these softwares, they do a poor job parsing the information of complicated resume into something interpretable for the hiring managers.
This is why experts warn job seekers not to depend too heavy on AI when building a resume. Experts say relying solely on AI replaces authenticity.
A line on the resume for a student could be a data-driven individual with leadership skills. So this is great, but it says almost nothing about the candidate.
Experts recommend keeping fonts and formatting simple, focus on content, not appearance, use keywords directly from the job description, and review information carefully.
AI tend to inflate skills, so it's very important for people when use AI to write resume to check everything later.
Experts say AI can be a useful assistant, but it shouldn't replace personal experience, accuracy, or networking.
If there is something on your resume that you cannot, defend it reasonably in your interview, it shouldn't be on your resume.
We asked recruiters on our federal workforce fallout chat with the recruiters Zoom call about a couple of months ago about the use of AI to build one's resume. Here's what they told us.
I'm glad to jump in there. I would say, while there is an AI sometimes overlay, right, that does play into applicant tracking systems, most of the hype that you hear that, hey, I submitted my application and the AI just kicked it out and I never heard from anyone. I would be interested to hear what Andy and Kelly have to say. But of all the many years of recruitment experience, networks of recruiters and recruiting leadership, I don't know of really any organizations that have the ATS auto rejecting people based on their application. I would say 95% of the time, there is a human laying eyes on your resume. Now, there may be some auto-generated rejection letters that you receive once that application has been rejected, but there's a human somewhere reviewing that resume and then triggering either the proceed or rejection. So I would say just take heart, stay at it. Don't get too down. I've been on the other side of a riff and in this job market about a year and a half ago, and I can certainly relate. And I would say there's a lot of people in the talent acquisition industry who have been there as well. So while it may not get the publicity, a lot of people in the talent acquisition space are very empathetic, have dealt with these same things that everyone else in the workforce is dealing with. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, I'll
go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, Kara, great question. Try to put a little bit of yourself in the actual resume, meaning not just it's purely, here's my job titles, here's all my accomplishments. Yes, those are important, but if you can add any personal touch to it, such as whether it's your personality, it's your approach, it's how you work with people, any relevant activities or interests that you think would be important to that reader or to that organization, you should try to include those as much as possible. So I know I'm a little vague on that because everybody's got a little bit of difference, but hopefully what comes through is don't strip out Kara from the resume because you're afraid that this ATS is going to strip everything out. And, just to piggyback on Chase's point, I think most organizations now are using some type of AI filter, but what it's really doing is not necessarily making the decision. Hopefully it's not. But what it's doing is beginning to do a little bit of a ranking or a preference. And it might say, hey, here's 100 applicants. of those, here's the 12 that we think are the most relevant. But to Chase's point, a human being, I'm a human being in this equation, we're still going through it. Even if it's highly ranked, we're still evaluating it. And even if it doesn't get to those quote unquote highly ranked, we're still going through those as well. So I wish it was a better answer, but I think to Chase's point, yeah, continue working. Don't necessarily feel that the ATS or AI is making all the decisions.
Yeah, I can give you an example recently too. I mean, I don't normally post jobs in my work, but I took a flyer on one and I did. And we had a bunch of people apply, and the way it works in LinkedIn, you hit easy apply and then it shows up that so-and-so has applied for a job. I open it up and within seconds, I can reject somebody. I've seen you, but I can reject you. I mean, it's that easy. And where it gets real easy when I put up a program manager job and I get an HR business partner applying for the job. Now you can blame that on the ATS system or you can blame that on AI. But what these guys are saying, yeah, eyes are on this, but it's just such a bad fit. You don't get any attention at all. So it may seem mechanical, it may seem automatic. It's actually not. You've just applied for the wrong job.
Unions that represent federal workers have been busy during the Trump administration's second term, and I wanted to know how they plan on protecting the federal workforce during unprecedented change. I spoke with Anthony Lee, president of NETU Chapter 282, Dr. Vanessa Weaver, CEO of Alignment Strategies, and Alyssa Tafty, co-executive director of Branch 4.
I would say that there are some Republicans that are more aligned with stopping these changes that have occurred in the federal government. The Protect America's Workforce Act is the perfect example of that. It had bipartisan support, and these days it's very hard to get bipartisan support on anything. But in the House of Representatives, the Protect America's Workforce Act passed with bipartisan support. It's now in the Senate, and we are urging the Senate to collectively, in a bipartisan fashion, pass that law, which would restore many collective bargaining rights, which would give employees some sense that they're not going to be penalized or retaliated against for political reasons when they're doing their jobs.
Do you feel that that law and the way in which it is written currently goes far enough to provide the sort of protections that you believe that federal workers are entitled to, given what has taken place over the last year?
Well, I would say absolutely not, that it doesn't go far enough, but there are ways where it can be improved upon. But it is definitely a first start and would be welcomed by unions if the Senate does pass that.
Elisa, was there anything you wanted to add on that?
No, I think Anthony got it.
Okay.
I wanted to say one, and I think one of the struggles has been that the public, the American public, who benefits obviously from the work that occurs in our government agencies, still doesn't quite fully understand how all of this impacts them until there's a shutdown. Mm-hmm. And it seems to me, because there you asking the question, are there alliances? And I think that there needs to be even a much more aggressive attempts to pull the public in. I mean, we saw the power of Minnesota in terms of the public's reaction. And I think the public needs to really get it, because the media attention on this has died down, at least to me, with the exception of what we're doing on our channel. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not sure that the American public really understands what it is in terms of its impact on them. And why is it in their self-interest to call their congressional member, to call their senator, and really, really ask for more support for the American worker and for the agencies. I mean, the worker is challenged, and those supervisors who are, I'm not talking necessarily about leadership, but I'm talking about those supervisors who have the day-to-day responsibility to make sure something gets done. They're struggling trying to figure out what to do. So I just think it needs to be a groundswell of attention by the American public, and an understanding by the American public of how this is hurting them and their families.
Anthony, has that sort of education been made clear to the American public? I think regionally, I think folks get it because a lot of federal workers are our neighbors, right? People that we fellowship with on a daily basis. But I think outside of the Beltway, outside of the region, it seems like it's a tougher sell.
I would definitely say that there's more work to be done there. During the shutdown, I think we did a really good job across the country in other places like Colorado and Florida and upstate, or the Northeast states, of educating the public on why the shutdown itself would impact their lives and what was not being done. And so similarly, I think, need to do that same job, for example, to tell the public why Schedule PC would harm them, giving, or I guess having the concern of people, for example, reviewing food, drug, medical device applications and ingredients and saying, hey, I'm concerned about my job. And if I come back with a answer that is not politically acceptable, I could be fired for doing it. That's going to impact the work that is done to protect the food supply, to protect and make sure that products that people are putting in their bodies are safe and effective and won't harm them. And some other things that are going on at these agencies, like the push to use AI to do some review work for drugs and medical devices, things like that, that would certainly directly impact the public. And I don't think most people may use AI every day, but I don't think most people would want AI making decisions about what drugs should be approved that they're going to put in their bodies.
Elisa, I'm curious, how concerned are you about the long-term implications of the changes that we've seen within the federal workforce? I mean, from to Anthony's point, the changes that we've seen initiated by DOJ, some of the issues that have arisen from the work that DOJ has been participating in, the delays and sort of government efficiency, as some would say, in terms of actually getting work done. How concerned are you about the future?
I'm very concerned. I think we should be very concerned. The work that they're doing is very destructive, and the federal workers are holding it together as best as they can, but the pieces are sort of going to start falling apart at some point. At the same time, I never believed that I was an optimist, but it seems like this has brought out the optimist in me. I see the power and the strength and the expertise of the federal workers, and how focused they are. And I think that we are doing the work, and many others are doing the work, to take this moment to really also think about how can we build a new administrative branch of government that works better, that serves the people better, and how can we make sure that the communities, the people who are actually receiving these services and these protections, and federal workers are leading the way in making sure that what we come up with next is better, so that out of destruction we can actually create something far better than we could have imagined.
And, that's really important too, for people to get involved and to try to work on change and improving the system, because the lack of involvement makes people feel more helpless and more hopeless. And so getting into the fight, looking at ways that they can improve the operational efficiencies in their own workplace, and also joining those organizations that are attempting to really make sure that the federal worker is protected and treated fairly. People standing up and being more involved is also a way of them being healthier and happier.
Our thanks to our guest. You can count on WUSA 9 to stay on top of the reductions to the federal workforce, those affected, and what it means for our communities. In the meantime, scan a QR code on your screen. It will take you to a special section of WUSA9.com dedicated to our coverage of this story. And of course, we'll keep you updated right here on federal workforce fallout. We appreciate you being here. Take care, and we'll see you again soon.
You've learned a lot in life, on the job, in the military, raising a family. At Prince George's Community College, that experience can count as college credit. You could earn up to 15 college credits towards your degree just for what you already know. Eligible Prince George's County grads can even attend tuition-free with the Promise Scholarship. So, what's your game plan? Turn your journey into a degree at Prince George's Community College.